Daniel Levy yesterday and reiterated he wants to join Inter Milan this month. That's according to our colleague Sky in Italy. Eriksen's agent will meet with Levy after Tottenham's game against Norwich tonight to try and find and work an agreement between these two clubs. Now remember, head coach Jose Mourinho said yesterday that Eriksen is in the squad tonight if no deal was agreed. So yesterday Mourinho said he's going to play a part tonight, and he's played in the last few games despite his future it being up in the air. But this is an update for everyone that he has told Daniel Levy himself that he wants to leave the club.
Last night on the Transfer Talk podcast that came out, we had Fabrizio Romano from Sky in Italy actually on the podcast, who said it was a matter of days before Christian Eriksen goes to Inter Milan. So, Anton, it looks like we are finally seeing an end to this.
We are, and I think this is a power play. If the player himself is meeting with the club chairman, there is a massive frustration on the player's part. There is absolutely no way Christian Eriksen thought he'd be lining up for Tottenham 5 times in January. There's no way he thought he'd still be at the club the 22nd of January. He wants to get out. He's got a deal in principle already agreed with Inter Milan. Now, this is him. His agent, like Michael said, is going to meet up with Daniel Levy after the Norwich game tonight. They just want to say, look, come on. Christian Eriksen's given so much to this football club. It's time. Don't drag this out any longer. If you need to sign a replacement, just go and do it, because this player does not want to play for this football club anymore. He wants to start his new future. And the fact that you've got Inter Milan's chief exec Giuseppe Marotta coming out and talking to the press and telling them that, even told Sky Italia last night that he's confident that this deal will get done. It just means that there's the only part of frustration now isn't with the player, isn't with Inter Milan. The frustration is with them, with Tottenham, because they just want this done. He wants to leave. He wants to go to Italy.
It'll be interesting also to see how he plays tonight, because he will not want to be getting injured ahead of this move. And also, Levy has said it's one thing trying to get a player to sign a new deal if the contract is there for them, but it's another if you think the player doesn't want to be there, and he's made that quite clear. So I'd love it to be a fly on the wall in that conversation tonight.
Yeah, Mark, it's quite interesting is that this is the player himself who's spoken to Daniel Levy, because usually you just leave it to your agent because that's what you pay them for.
I admire this, though. I really admire a player that can face-to-face with an owner or a chairman or a manager, look him in the eye and have an actual conversation. Stuff going through agents and second parties and various people, it just confuses things. I'm going to look at Daniel Levy in the eye, I'm going to speak to him and I'm going to say, this is how I feel, this is what I want, please can we get it sorted out? And you just might find that actually things might get sorted out, do it properly. I know the agents are there and they're great for certain things, but sometimes you just need to grab it by the scruff of your neck yourself and say, let's get this sorted out. Let's agree it now, me and you, and then we can get this done and dusted and we can all move on, because that's what needs to happen now. Because like Michael said at the start of the show, every day we talk about Christian Eriksen. Imagine how tough that is for him. And it's quite funny because I spoke to a couple of Premier League players over the course of this window who were out of contract in the summer. And they're saying to me, it's the most difficult time of their career. Every time you go into training, you worry about getting injured. Every time you go into a game, you worry about getting injured. You just don't know where your future lies. You don't know what your income's going to be. You don't know where your home life is going to be. And it becomes really tough, and it's a mental strain as much as it is a physical one.
What does Jose Mourinho do now? Is he changing his team as we speak? He's such a detailed head coach. This is a massive game for Tottenham Hotspur tonight. He's called on him the last few games. Some fans find it bewildering. They're like, oh, I can't believe Christian Eriksen's coming on again. He did it against Watford as well. He might have started tonight, but does this update mean he'll be on the bench or not even in the squad at all?
We shall see.
We shall see.
Yeah, look forward to that team news later on. Right, OK, we're going to move to Manchester United now. We're expecting them to be busy between now and deadline day. We're going to talk about Moussa Dembele, Boubakary Soumare and Jude Bellingham all in a moment. But as usual, let's bring you up to speed with Bruno Fernandes. Mark.
This is another one of those transfer sagas that just rolls on and on and on and on and on. But there were some really interesting developments, and I think it's quite significant actually, because his club Sporting were in cup action last night. They were beaten 2-1, so they were knocked out of the cup at the semi-final stage. Funnily enough, the final actually happens this weekend. Now, it was interesting watching the transfer show last night with Darmesh and Carve, because they had a really interesting guest in Carlos Carvalhal, who was on the show, and obviously he manages in Portugal at the moment, so he gave a really nice insight into perhaps some of the workings behind this deal. Obviously Sporting in desperate need of money, desperately want to sell the player, are happy for him to go to Manchester United. However, the reason that Carlos thinks it's dragged on so long is because they wanted him involved in these cup matches. The semi-final last night and then potentially the final at the weekend. Then, if they got to the final, which they didn't, then he would have played in the final at the weekend. That would have been the big send-off, win the cup, fantastic, everyone leaves on a high. And he spoke really, really glowingly about the player. He's obviously come up against him as a manager. His side actually beat Sporting earlier on in the season. But he says he's like a Frank Lampard. He's a box-to-box midfielder, someone with a lot of quality. He's a leader on the pitch, someone that can manage from within the pitch, and someone that is got so much quality. He's without question the best player in the Portuguese Football League at the moment. He is the one to watch. So it's a really interesting watch and some really important insight onto the player.
Yeah, keep your tweets coming in, #TransferTalk. And Jonathan asks a question that we've been saying every day in our morning meetings. Will United ever complete the deal for Bruno Fernandes? All right, and Kemcho says, why can't Manchester United just sell Pogba and acquire Bruno? He also talked about bringing Alexis Sanchez back. That's not possible. He says that would be to fill the gap that Marcus Rashford has left. And we're going to get on to strikers in a moment. But in fact, actually, as we wait on that Bruno Fernandes deal, we do know that they need a striker, but they're also looking for another central midfielder. Now, two of their targets, Anton, played each other last night.
They did. Lyon took on Lille.
That's easy to say.
Yeah, well, but it should have been. It was supposed to be a broadcasting professional. They played each other in the French League Cup last night, and Dembele scored. The game went to penalties, and United sent scouts to that game for another check on two potential targets. As obviously Tommy just said, these are the positions they're looking to fill in January. Holding midfield has been a long-term target as they look for more options, so there isn't such a reliance on the likes of McTominay and Fred. And obviously we all know the need for a striker. Soumaré is a fascinating one, isn't he? Because he's the kind of name du jour, to use some more French. Ish.
Name
Like
of the day.
that.
Yeah, there you go. At the moment, isn't he? Simply because, look, he's this. It's really difficult to find a young, impressive, sort of naturally holding midfielder. He's all action, kind of. He can box to box. So it's so many boxes he ticks for Premier League teams to get excited about, which is why he's being linked with so many. But the crucial thing is, he came out of the weekend and said, I'm in the best possible place. Lille is a great place for a young player to be. He was in the Paris Saint-Germain academy, was told he wasn't going to make it, went to Lille and he's blossomed. He feels loved and wanted there. So necessarily the player might not be in a huge hurry to move, but money talks. We know Manchester United, we know Chelsea are interested. This may rumble onto the summer with him, but it'd be interesting to see whether anybody really steps up their efforts to sign him before the deadline.
It's no bad thing if he wants to stay, because he seems like someone who would be one for the future anyway, rather than to make immediate impact right now.
Last season he had 5 starts in Ligue 1, and a lot of clubs had a look and thought it's too much of a punt. This season he's starting regularly, he's playing in the Champions League, but again you see here he's been sent off twice this season. He's still got a lot to learn, and necessarily if he came into the Premier League I'm sure he'd do very well, but there's a lot of pressure going into a club trying to get into the Champions League in the Premier League, the likes of Manchester.
In January as well.
Exactly.
The worst
so perhaps his development would be better off staying in Ligue 1 until the summer, but that's not how the market works. Clubs want to get ahead of the others. If there's a sniff of him being available this month, someone will make a move for him because he's that highly regarded.
Yeah, I know, Michael, you think this is going to be one for the summer as well, rather than January on Soumaré. But what about on Moussa Dembele? Can you see why he's in such high demand?
Oh, absolutely. I'm a big fan of Moussa Dembele. I mean, I remember him at Fulham. Spurs were very keen on him then, but he had a few niggles, but still a very good goal-scoring record. Moved to Celtic, one goal in every 2 games for Celtic, including a hat-trick against Rangers in the Old Firm in a 5-1 win. Now, you say the Scottish League, but he was fantastic there. It's tough going to Glasgow when you're a young kid as well, but he proved it very well there. He bulked up, and he looks bigger when I've seen him for Lyon, and he's scoring goals there as well. For me, he'd be a very, very exciting signing. Again, possibly one for the summer, but core, they'll be interested in him.
His game has developed since moving to Lyon. You're right, he's stronger now. There's a squad, I think, against Bordeaux a couple of weeks ago. I was watching the game, and he was through on goal, and he was knocked off balance, and he still managed to keep his feet and finish really well. And you're thinking, that's the development you want to see in a young striker. You want to see the composure, you want to see the strength, and he's got all that, and he's always been a finisher.
Yeah.
So I think, again, with him, I can see why other clubs, because he has taken that next step.
I don't want to be... sorry, I was going to do a Darmesh rewind here at the moment, but I want to go back to sort of Lille just very quickly, because Jose Mourinho, when he was out of work looking at the French league and Lille in particular, Luis Campos is the Lille director of football, very, very highly regarded in world football. And I'm sure Luis Campos will be telling plenty about all the players at Lille at the moment. We used to talk about Monaco a few years ago, then Paris Saint-Germain, but Lille is a very exciting team, so I think there'll be plenty of you looking at that side in the summer.
In terms of the tweets coming in, Simon says, why don't they in terms of a striker, why don't they let Greenwood take on the striker role? Other clubs are using their superb teenage academy players. Why not give Greenwood his chance, like Michael Owen did back in the day, and Wayne Rooney as well, having a chance at the same age. And Sean says Manchester United need to improve their transfer business. It takes far too long to get deals done. We are getting frustrated and fed up with ongoing transfers that never get done. OK, well, one more from Manchester United. We know that in the summer, they had a policy of signing young British-based players, and that seems to be continuing with this next target. What's happening, Alice, with Jude Bellingham?
This player is very, very young indeed. Now, Sky Sports News can confirm that Manchester United are willing to pay in excess of £30 million for Birmingham's 16-year-old midfielder. So he's very young, as we say. A report in The Sun claimed that the Chiefs had submitted a bid of over £30 million for the player. Sky Sports News reporting on Monday that the club were willing to pay £25 million to sign him. He remains on £145 a week because of his age, which is just absolutely crazy if you think we're talking about this player with £30 million coming in for him. So £145 a week. Obviously, he will be on a more lucrative first professional contract. That's when he turns 17 on June the 29th. So that £145 a week, he'll probably earn that in an hour once we get to June. He's
got to 245.
Exactly. He's a box-to-box midfielder. He's also attracted interest from Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Borussia Dortmund and Liverpool as well. He's been earning rave reviews, 25 appearances for Birmingham so far this season. We know that they're under pressure to raise money. Obviously, they've been docked those 9 points. They broke the profit and sustainability rules. So perhaps the emergence of Bellingham could really actually have come at quite a good time for them, thinking of it financially, I would say.
And if there was only someone on the panel who was there when he made his debut, Mark.
Yes, you know what, it's one of those situations. I was lucky enough to be down on the south coast. It was at Portsmouth, actually, in a 3-0 defeat that you first saw Jude Bellingham take to the pitch in a Birmingham shirt for the first team. And it's like the same as Harvey Elliott when he played for Fulham. He's one of those young players. As soon as anyone under the age of 18 makes an appearance for a Football League club, every single club in the Premier League is put on alert. Every single club in Europe is on alert. They are all watching every move he makes. He didn't play for a couple of weeks after making his debut in the Cup, but then he got his first Championship appearance. Then he scored 2 goals back-to-back. And the thing that amazed me most about Jude Bellingham, a 16-year-old, he's a kid. He's still a kid with the greatest of respect, but he handled himself like a 26-year-old on the pitch. It didn't faze him. He got on the ball, he dictated play, he was comfortable, he was composed, he was calm, he showed his ability to pass. He sat just in front of the back four. He had good players around him that were just talking him through the game, but he didn't need talking through the game because he knew what he was doing. It was so impressive, a really experienced head on young shoulders. And to see him being linked with Manchester United doesn't surprise me. He has got that quality. The most important thing for him, though, is that he keeps playing games and he keeps developing. And if that means that Man United buy him, loan him back to Birmingham and he keeps his progression going, then that's key. But, oh, wow, what a player. Yeah. 16 years old, love it.
A really good point that Tom made at the beginning, which is Manchester United made a shift, didn't they? Ollie was very public about it in the summer, saying we want young British players. And if you look at the England sort of youth setup over the last few years, it's been really successful. But the one position you'd argue that haven't really seen many players break through is that kind of slightly deeper midfielder. You know, lots of attacking midfielders, forwards, good centre-backs we've seen coming through as well. But that holding midfielder, there aren't too many in the English. Even Gareth Southgate's come out and said that's the position where it's been weakness in the developmental system. Bellingham's the best of the bunch, and he's younger than the rest of them. That's why there's such a clamour for his services as well.
And surely it would be more of a risk for Birmingham to not take, say 30 million did come in, to not take that given their financial difficulties at the minute, because say Manchester United were to pay 30 million for a player they're basically basing it on potential and talent, it'd be more of a risk for Birmingham not to take that than for a club to spend that money, I would say.
I'm sure a deal can be done though. I think he need another season in the Championship, and then by the time he's 17 he will be the real deal, ready for the Premier League.
Yeah, those 9 points docked of course last season for Birmingham for breaching those rules, but Jude Bellingham, they're very much a man in demand, and if they can get £30 million and an add-on as well, a sell-on clause, even better for them. Right, OK, still to come on Good Morning Transfers. We'll assess who needs a striker the most this month, and Tammy Abraham hobbles off the pitch last night. Will that force Chelsea's hand to sign a new forward? All through January, we've been talking about how many clubs are looking for a striker in this transfer window. We've picked a few of them here, 7 of them, in fact, and we're quickly going to start with Chelsea. OK, why do they need a striker? Well, Tammy Abraham's their leading striker. He went off with an injury last night. Don't know how bad that is just yet. They'll be hoping it's not bad at all. It looks like Olivier Giroud is leaving. Michy Batshuayi is not a regular starter. Interest in Moussa Dembele has gone quiet in the last couple of weeks, but we know they want a striker.
Tottenham are in absolute desperate need of a striker. And not one fit senior striker in the squad. And Liverpool fans, if you picked up a programme against Manchester United on Sunday, you might have noticed when going through the last match you played against Tottenham, Liverpool put 4-6-0 in the formation. A little bit cheeky. True? Possibly.
It was, right, OK, Manchester United. Now, everyone says that they didn't replace Lukaku in the summer. We get so many tweets about this. You can add Alexis Sanchez to that as well. Martial has been playing as a striker, where he used to always play out on the left wing. Rashford's injured, we know that. Mason Greenwood is very young. They needed one anyway, and according to all your tweets, maybe they even need 2 now.
Yeah, going on to Wolves now, and they're looking for a backup for Raul Jimenez. My colleague Anton at the desk is covering Wolves all through January, and he says Nuno Espirito Santo likes working with a small squad, but the Europa League is coming back.
Yeah, now Aston Villa here, they've scored the most goals of anyone in the bottom half, but not many are from strikers. They've let Jonathan Kodjia go, and Wesley is out for the season. They have signed Mbwa Samatta this week, but they need one more because Samatta replaces Kodjia, but they need one more to replace the injured Wesley.
Crystal Palace, they have brought in St Tosun, but don't rule out another striker coming in. Roy Hodgson looking to add players all over, but some more firepower could still be on the agenda.
Yeah, we'll end with Newcastle as well. Joe Linton's been struggling. Of course, he could come good. Gale hasn't been featuring as much as he would have liked, and Andy Carroll has got ongoing fitness issues. They are getting plenty of goals from centre-back mainly, and at least Miguel Almiron is starting to find the net playing just off the striker. But one thing's for sure, they certainly need one this month. All right, so of all those clubs there who need a striker, and there are more as well, Alice, who do you think needs one the most?
I think I've got to go with Bridgie with Tottenham. Tottenham losing Harry Kane, we've talked about it a lot, absolutely huge. Obviously, last season he was out for a while. Heung-min Son, Lucas Moura, they did fill the boots, but that was obviously under a different manager. That was under Maurizio Pochettino, and they didn't massively struggle without him. But the way that Jose Mourinho is playing now, losing Harry Kane could be huge in their bid for a top 4 finish, really. Troy Parrott they have got, but he's 17 years old, and Mourinho has said time and time again he isn't quite ready. That's not to say he won't be ready in a season or 2, but he can't fill the boots of Harry Kane right now. And even when Kane is back, obviously we know he's not going to be back in training until around April time, but even when he is back, he will need to be rested as well. I mean, I went to Southampton on Monday and I did the press conference with Ralph Hasenhüttl, and we talked about Danny Ings and the form that he's in. And someone asked him, with Kane's injury and with Rashford being injured as well, how do you stop this happening to Danny Ings? And then you saw he was rested last night. So these players do need the rest, otherwise they can get overworked as well. We don't know how long Kane will be out for, but if they are challenging for a top 4 finish, they desperately need a striker. Heung-min Son as well, he's not having a great season when you compare it to last. So yeah, Spurs definitely.
Yeah, someone suggesting that Everton should be on there as well, and suggesting they should be in for Christoph Piontek. There's one here from Vernon who says that Tottenham, agreeing with you, need to get a striker in ASAP, or we can say goodbye to Champions League football. He actually suggests that Cavani would be a good statement of intent. And Matthew says that Crystal Palace's main priority should be a full-back rather than a striker. OK, Mark or Anton, anyone else who you think should be absolutely desperate for a striker right now?
I just think we cannot get away from Manchester United. I think, we were saying it in the summer, you lose a senior striker in Romelu Lukaku. You can argue they don't have a natural senior number 9 in that squad. Mason Greenwood obviously came through the system as a striker, but I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has taken the pressure off him by playing him out wide, so there isn't so much on such a young player. Marcus Rashford has clearly adapted to playing in that inside left position, and that's where Anthony Martial came through. He likes playing as a centre forward, but it takes a strong manager to turn around and say, no, we want a number 9 to build our team around. A team that's struggling needs a strong centre forward to go, do you know what, even if we're not doing very well, just someone, the sniff of a goal, that would be vital to our team. And so many teams play one up front. That's why it's vital to have more than one striker in your squad. So I would argue it's, at least with Tottenham, they've got a number 9 in the building, they've got a number 9 in the squad. Manchester United, do they really have one at all, a senior out-and-out striker in that team? I don't think they do.
Anton's touched on something there that riles with me. Now, I might be a bit old-fashioned. I know I'm probably the oldest person on the panel. But sides and teams that play one up front, it's a part of modern football. And you're trying to put me off here.
He's making a good point.
I know, sorry.
He's making a good point, because I actually agree with you, Mark. I know what you're going to say.
No, so basically, it really annoys me. This one up front is fantastic when you've got two fantastic wingers either side, and it creates a really dynamic front three. But what happened to the good old-fashioned 4-4-2, where you had one striker up front and another striker up front? You had a big man and a little man, or you had two quick men. And suddenly, because of the changing face of football, you lose those two up front, you have one up front, and that means that you don't need 4 strikers in your squad, you need 3 strikers, 2 of which are sat on the bench. If managers had 2 up front and played 2 up front every game, they'd have 2 or 3 on the bench, and then when one gets injured, guess what? They've got another 2 or 3 or 4 to look at. But now suddenly...
Well,
what year is this?
Who are the most expensive positions to buy?
Strikers.
So why only play one? I agree with you completely.
There we go.
Come on, don't. What year is
Hashtag
this?
transfer talk.
No, you don't have to play 4-4-2 though. You could play 3 at the back and still fit 2 strikers in there.
Yeah, Inter Milan do that very well. I'll give you that. However, look, who plays 2 up front in the Premier League? Bournemouth. How well's that gone this season?
Ooh, he went there.
It's a good point, but if you look at who wins the Premier League, Manchester City won the Premier League twice with 4-4-2. Manchester United used to do it every single season with 4-4-2.
I mean, what is wrong? You know, that works well if you play direct style of football. We're going way off topic here. But yeah, look, the fact of the matter is, what is wrong with technical football? Technical football comes through the middle, get some good players in, get some players that actually know how to play football as opposed to just launching it and lobbing it down the wing.
But that's not what anyone's suggesting. Anyway, we're going to move on to Chelsea now. OK, right, Chelsea, we talked about how they need a striker, but they might be in the market for a couple of positions as well. Anton, why do they want a left-back?
I think, to be brutally honest, I think it's because Frank Lampard isn't particularly convinced by the options he has in Alonso and Emerson. At left-back, we've seen Cesar Azpilicueta play there quite often. And the emergence of Reece James has meant they can move him over to left-back, but it's been a long-term position they've been looking for. Marcos Alonso has been consistently linked with the move back to Spain, but that hasn't happened. His best position is arguably a left wing-back as well. So it's a long-term position they're looking at, but we haven't seen anyone come in yet, which I think is fascinating, because I think that would help their defensive solidity, especially, we've seen how frail they are, especially at home this season.
Yeah, I like Alonso and Emerson at left-back as well, actually. But centre-back, it's gone a bit quiet, Mark.
Yeah, this was one of the ones you thought might happen quite early in the January transfer window. There was that link immediately with the buyback clause for Nathan Ake at Bournemouth, so everyone immediately thought Frank Lampard was going to go and get his first signing, and it would be a centre-half. But that, obviously, as we now know, is not going to be triggered, and that move is not going to happen. And there was talk of Andreas Christensen leaving Chelsea as well, which would have left them slightly light at the back. I think potentially still there is that position there that needs to be filled. You look at, obviously, you know, one of his best mates, John Terry, who was absolutely superb for Chelsea throughout a number of years. Have they got a leader at the back? Possibly not. You know, obviously, Fikayo Tomori, only 15 Premier League appearances, so much potential and a great player. Obviously, Kurt Zuma's the most experienced centre-half they have at Chelsea, and obviously he's had his injury problems as well. Is he the type of player that can lead them to titles and silverware from the back? Possibly not. He's got the experience, he's getting the experience, but I definitely think there is someone there that's needed that can really show how to defend and lead from behind the rest of the team. It's a young, exciting, promising team. So many great players, but I think maybe just a little bit of experience at the back could transform their dynamic. We've seen recently results of slid. Let's see if they can just get a little bit of experience there just to help things along.
Alice, they haven't signed a striker yet. Why don't they just keep Giroud?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I actually don't know the answer to it. He's a World Cup winner, isn't he? You'd think that he'd be a great person to have in the squad and to have as an option. Obviously, we know how well Tammy Abraham is doing. Last season at Aston Villa, he did the business for them, and I think a lot of people were questioning, would this move up be a little bit too big for him? And he's shown it absolutely isn't. Michy Batshuayi, he's wanted more game time as well, but obviously Lampard has been favouring Abraham as his main striker, and quite rightly so. Last season, Giroud played a massive part in the Europa League, didn't he? But this season, he's only made, as I say, he's just made a couple of Premier League appearances, 2 starts this season. So he probably won't be feeling too happy. And an unhappy player in the dressing room, particularly a more senior player as well, can't be very beneficial to the squad right now. And Lampard clearly isn't having him in the way that he would want to be playing and having those minutes.
Right, thanks, Alice. It's time for State of Play now. And Mark, you're doing that today.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Jose Mourinho insists Tottenham will not make any knee-jerk signings in January, but we do know Spurs are in the market, as we've been speaking about, for a striker. AC Milan have made a transfer inquiry for Nottingham Forest's Matty Cash. Manchester City are one of a number of top European clubs considering a move for Brescia's 19-year-old midfielder Sandro Tonali in the summer. Brighton have secured a work permit for midfielder Alexis McAllister, who's currently on loan at Boca Juniors. Aston Villa boss Dean Smith has confirmed again he wants one more striker in this January transfer window. Wolves have signed Leandro Campana from Ecuadorian club Barcelona SC. And finally, Liverpool have no plans to sign RB Leipzig striker Timo Werner in the January transfer window.
Keep using the hashtag Transfer Talk and have your say. We'll have the latest news from the EFL plus updates from Manchester City.
Welcome back to Good Morning Transfers. Time for a look now at some of the latest news across the EFL. Leeds have signed the Chievo goalkeeper Elia Caprile on a 3.5-year deal. Nottingham Forest have signed Huddersfield forward Adama Diakabi. That's on loan until the end of the season. Bristol City have approached Burnley over a permanent deal to sign Naki Wells. The striker is of course on loan at QPR, but the deal contains a recall option this month. Sunderland have signed Bailey Wright on loan, that's from Bristol City. And Walsall have signed midfielder Nathan Sherron on loan from Fleetwood until the end of the season.
Yeah, some lines there from the EFL and some lines from the women's game as well. Anton, some breaking news.
Yeah, Eni Aluko, remember who we brought the news last week that she'd retired from the game. She teased at the end last week there'll be a major announcement concerning her. And she's already back in the game. She's been announced as Aston Villa's first ever sporting director for their women's side. Now, Aston Villa are absolutely flying in the Championship. They're top of the Championship. Big ambitions for them to get into the WSL next season. And anyone that's spent any time around Eni Aluko or seen her do punditry on Sky or anywhere else, her knowledge of the game, men's game and women's game, is second to none. She's one of the cleverest sort of minds in the game. It's very interesting to see Villa snap her up so soon. Eni Aluko, of course, started her career at Birmingham City. So that'd be fascinating to see the allegiances there. But look, it's no surprise that Eni Aluko has been snapped up straight away. Villa got a big game in the FA Cup against Brighton, who are a WSL side, at the weekend. It'd be interesting to see where they are in terms of development and what that team needs to kick on to the next level. And they clearly see the fact that Eni Aluko is someone that can help them get to where they want to go.
Yeah, she was on set with me and Julian Waters on Saturday evening, and she said she had some big news to come this week, and we were trying to get it out of her, and she would not budge. So there it is. Okay, big breaking news surrounding Eni Aluko. Right, to Manchester City. We didn't expect them to be doing much business in January. Pep Guardiola has said as much all season, hasn't he? However, they have got one target, Anton. Tell us a little bit more about him.
Yeah, Sandro Tonali is a player they've been linked with, and that does not surprise me in any stretch of the imagination. I think this player is absolutely fantastic. He is quite often likened to Andrea Pirlo, who's one of my favourite players of all time, and you can completely see why. And it's not just because they've both got kind of long, shaggy hair. They both sort of deep line midfield, a beautiful range of passing, can run a game. And the big thing with Tonali,
it's beautifully done hair.
When you're running around on the pitch, it bounces around and it's a little bit out of place. I just like hair. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. That is fair.
Sorry.
Don't be.
We'll sort it out later.
There's a battle. Right, go on, carry on, sorry.
Yeah, his range passing is absolutely wonderful, and look, he's still really, really young, and this is his first season in Serie A. He's currently at Brescia, and he's made the step up, and he's just fit in absolutely wonderfully, playing behind Mario Balotelli in the team, by the way. So he's, it's a different type of pressure, I suppose, playing with him, but it's interesting to see. He's been linked with Juventus, been linked with Paris Saint-Germain, and I think the reason you see Manchester City linked now is because a club may have to act soon to secure his signature, and as similar to we were talking about Jude Bellingham, maybe include a loan deal or something like that to keep Brescia happy until the end of the season, because clubs will not want to do what happened. A lot of clubs in Italy don't want to do what they saw with Verratti when he left at a young age, went to Paris Saint-Germain, and then all of a sudden he's out of the Italian game, and one of the best players, midfield players of a generation in Italy is gone. They do not want to see that happen with Sandro Tonali. So that's why you're seeing a scramble for his signature. That's why you're seeing Manchester City linked, because he's so highly rated. He's already broken into the Italy squad as well under Roberto Mancini. So, yeah, I genuinely think player with a huge, huge future.
If he was to fit into the Manchester City side now, I mean, whose place would he take? It sounds like more of a Gundogan.
Gundogan. I think Gundogan, they want options in the centre midfield. They don't want to rely on just Rodri and Gundogan. And I think naturally you could see those two playing next to each other as Rodri and Tonali, and then with David Silva potentially, with him leaving at the end of the season, that's where you've got the question mark over Phil Foden. So the centre midfield at Manchester City next season could look very different.
Yeah, it does sound like there's going to be a refresh, Mark, because everyone assumes that Foden will just take David Silva's place. It looks like they're now looking at other areas where they can just refresh it.
I think, yeah, Pep Guardiola has said for weeks, months, even years about how good Phil Foden is. However, he's probably not started as many games at Manchester City as Pep's praise deserved. But there's no question about his ability as a player, and he is at the right age and the right place to absolutely take to that Manchester City team when David Silva moves on in the summer. It's quite amazing, really. He's still only 19 years old. He's an England under-17 World Cup winner. He's won 2 Premier League trophies already, an FA Cup and 2 League Cups, and he's 19 years old. So I think that is one position where the Manchester City boss will not have to worry, because he knows he's got a ready-made replacement who could virtually walk into any Premier League side right now. But in the summer and for next season, he could be a mainstay at Manchester City for 10 years. He's an absolutely top-quality player, a class act, and someone that could be really instrumental in them regaining the Premier League title.
It's not the same in every position that there's a ready-made replacement, though, is it, Michael? Do you think this summer might be a summer of big changes at Manchester City, especially how far behind Liverpool they are?
You just get the feeling there's a real refresh coming. Really interesting quotes when he's speaking to the written press. But after we speak to him, my colleague Ben Ransom speaking to him in the press conference, talking about transfers. Doesn't seem to be much going on this January. However, I think Ben could be really busy in the summer. Very interesting quote. Everything is based on their performance, not their contracts. It doesn't seem remotely bothered that if there's a player on a 4-year deal but they've not lived up to his expectation this season, he will move them on. Does it need a refresh? Perhaps so. They've conceded goals this season where I don't deem them to be a Pep team, And you look at the table at the moment, they probably won't like to look at the league table, but the season is far from over. The league, it's a real stretch, of course, but they are in all the cup competitions, and Pep respects them. Although he's talking about abolishing certain competitions this week, he still plays his full-strength team in them, and he wants to win trophies. But you do get that impression it could look a little bit different, and it could be a busy summer in Manchester.
Yeah, I was at Molineux. Pep Guardiola had his press conference after their defeat, and it was a dramatic game, wasn't it? And I asked Pep about, you could do anything in January. No, dismissive. But the summer, which makes you think, right, they're already looking at next season. And I think 2, 3, 4 of those players in the squad right now are vulnerable. And
it also goes to say what he thinks the difference between January and the summer window is as well, because bringing players in January and hoping they can get the ground running, especially given how far behind they are Liverpool at the minute, you think that he would be thinking more long term, and that is why a lot of these clubs are waiting until summer to think further ahead, I guess.
I mean, I have to say, I was very surprised on the show we didn't break any defender signings in the summer with Manchester City.
They haven't replaced Company.
No, absolutely. And in hindsight, will he look back and say to us at the end of the season, maybe we should have done? I mean, I heard him talk about Fernandinho the other day. He's one of the best professionals I've ever had. He plays anywhere, any minutes. He's incredible. However, they have so many games. You talk about Man City. I mean, people probably say, talk about Man City need a freshen up. My team needs a freshen up. But City will want to respond from this, and Pep will probably do so.
Yeah, even when you read Sir Alex Ferguson's autobiography, Anton, he talks about every now and again he had to build a new side. Would you go as far as to say he needs to build a new side?
No, I wouldn't. But Manchester City have only added 1 or 2 parts a year. And so sometimes you do need a couple, and it's about a good teams know how to assess themselves. Almost self-scouting effectively. And a player hasn't lived up to, the hype, or isn't quite fitting into the next ethos, the next development of the team's ethos, then you have to be ruthless and you have to see a player leave. But I completely agree with Michael. It's centre-back is the glaring need right now. We're still in January. They could go and do business now because they've still got a great chance of winning the Champions League. Get past Real Madrid as well in the next round. They could go and do this, but you could argue, will they win the Champions League with Laporte and one of their other centre-backs there? Maybe not. So, you know, if that's your biggest vulnerability right now, why plan? Why are teams consistently looking to plan next season when there's so much on the line this season?
Right, remember the latest episode of the Transfer Talk podcast is available now, iTunes and Spreaker. And next on Good Morning Transfers, we'll have news from the Scottish Premiership. Plus, could Matty Cash be on his way to Italy?
It's Nottingham Forest's Mr Versatile, Matty Cash. The 22-year-old was asked to start the season at right back and has quickly gone on to become one of the Championship's best in that position. He's a player that can do everything: tackle, pass, dribble. He gets assists, which is why AC Milan are showing an interest, and he's valued at around between 10 and 15 million pounds. Now, we also understand Southampton and Brighton are also interested in him, so fifth place Nottingham Forest face a decision: sell now and make a tidy profit on an academy graduate, or keep him and hope to get in the Premier League. And I've managed to get through an entire segment about Matty Cash without making a money-based pun. So, Matty, my cheque had better be in the post.
Time for a look at the latest transfer lines in the Scottish Premiership. Now, Celtic manager Neil Lennon has told the club's in-house channel Tyrese Campbell is not a target this window. Of course, Celtic have brought in Patrick Imala this window to add to competition up front. Now, news this morning, Jack Henry has joined Melbourne City on loan. Let's go to Rangers. Now, Stephen Gerrard says outgoings is still his priority. A few have gone out on loan, but don't ever rule someone coming in at Ibrox. But the squad does look settled, must be said. Let's go on to Hearts now. Daniel Stindl has made Kosovan striker Dennis Avdija his first signing on Monday. Stindl has looked to add another striker to help get Hearts out of the relegation trouble. Let's go to their rivals Hibernian now. Will Jack Ross enter the market late on? Ryan Pretorius and Jason Naismith will be out for lengthy periods due to knee injuries. Both were sustained in a draw in the Scottish Cup against Dundee United on Sunday, when Naismith is on loan from Peterborough United. Let's go to St Johnstone. Jamie McCart to St Johnstone on a pre-contract. He's done, but the club will try and sign him now from Inverness Cally Thistle this window. Let's go to Hamilton Accies, and they've confirmed that goalkeeper Luke Southwood has returned on loan from Reading for the remainder of the season. So plenty going on in the Scottish Premiership, and my Sky Sports News colleague Charles Patterson, he looks ahead to the return of the Premiership and assesses how things stand with the transfer window in full flow. That is on our website.
Yeah, OK, right, OK, so that's news from the Scottish Premiership. I just want to go back to that transfer spotlight there. We were talking about Matty Cash there, and, you know, a British talent who could well be moving abroad. Just recap what the latest is with him, Mark.
This, I think, shows you the quality that is within the Championship. When you've got a side like AC Milan, one of the giants of European football, looking at players in the second tier of English football, it gives you an indication as to just how many good quality players are at that level. And guess what? Matty Cash is without question one of those. He's absolutely superb. I watched him a few weeks ago at the Madejski Stadium. He had a really solid game. And it's one of those stories that I absolutely love in football. You look at where he's come from, through the academy at Nottingham Forest, as Anton mentioned. He went on loan, got his first start in the EFL at Dagenham and Redbridge, which is always key. You look at the top quality players, they've all spent a period of time on loan somewhere. And that always helps to develop and build and prepare them for sort of real football, but for men's football, for competitive football, for football that really means something. And he went on loan to Dagenham and Redbridge, and now he's obviously one of the key members of that Nottingham Forest side, valued at around £15 million. It's my understanding that this deal happening to AC Milan is unlikely, but there is a real interest in this player. I love the fact that just a few years ago he was working in a toy shop every Saturday and playing football in the week. You know, he's very humble, he's very real, he's very rooted, he loves the game, and it was quite interesting, as Anton said again, he's moved positions over the course of this season. Generally, he's played in the past as a winger, he's even played in midfield, he's a versatile type player, but he went into one training session and his name was on the board at right back. And he sort of looks at it and goes, you know, right back. And then the gaffer, Sabri Lamucci, says, that's your new position. And everyone doubted him. He's not a right back, he can't play at right back. Guess what? AC Milan are watching him. He's a good right back, he's a good player, and he's definitely one to watch.
Tom really likes him as well, I think you really rate him.
Yeah, he's a very good player. He's been around that Nottingham Forest first team for quite a while and was linked with RB Leipzig just after Oliver Burke made that move. But AC Milan are looking at a few players from from over here, British-based fullbacks anyway. Wigan's Anthony Robinson we were telling you about last week, and also Hearts' left-back Aaron Hickey. It looks like AC Milan are looking at some of these players based over here. And Alice, it's happened to a few players now, young, specifically British talent, who've made the move abroad as a youngster.
Yeah, and you look at the likes of Jadon Sancho, and from making that move abroad to joining the Bundesliga, it just shows so much confidence for a player of his age to have left his family, to potentially being learning a language that he didn't even know as well. So I think it shows strength of character and the experience to go out and get football, not in the Premier League, not necessarily in the Championship, but going abroad, going out to Europe, showing what you can do, putting on display. The fan base, incredible with some of those clubs, particularly in the Bundesliga as well. It doesn't always work out though. We saw Oliver Burke, he went to RB Leipzig a couple of years ago, and he was mainly just used off the bench. So he did then come back to England, and he's now on loan at Alaves. So obviously the move abroad didn't put him off, but for some players it will work, for other players perhaps not. But you've got to credit the strength and character to going and doing that.
I think he's got a real chance of playing at AC Milan as well, which is crucial. They've got Davide Calabria and Andrea Conti at right back at the moment, and they're decent, but if Matty Cash can develop as he is at the moment at right back, he genuinely could become a Serie A starting right back, just like he could in the Premier League for a club like AC Milan. As you said, the problem is AC Milan have got financial problems, and will they specifically spend that much money on a right back that hasn't played in the top flight? It'd be interesting, but it's interesting to see them sniffing around the talent that we know is there in English football.
I love a Championship. I love the Championship. It's one of my favourite leagues at the moment. I love going to watch games there. There's a lot of quality. They're very evenly matched sides, but everything about it is about young British players, exciting players that might be in the Premier League, players that have come down from the Premier League. There's a real mix of everything, and that's what really makes it exciting.
OK, we've got some news just into us from the Championship, Mark, and it's transfer news regarding West Brom, and Croatian striker Mislav Orsic is on West Brom's wanting list. Slaven Bilic is just looking to reignite their promotion bid. He's got 17 goals this season with Dynamo Zagreb. He plays regularly in the or has been playing regularly in the Champions League. So it's going to be hard to prize him away from them, because they're actually top of the league in Croatia. They're 12 points clear of the Hadžić split, and it's thought that £8 million would be enough to get him for West Brom. OK, more on that as we get. Also, a reminder of the breaking news that Enia Luko we're going to be hearing from her in the next hour, because she is Aston Villa Women's first ever sporting director. OK, we're going to be back tomorrow for Good Morning Transfers at 9 a.m. As usual, 9 till 10. And we're back in a couple of hours' time. Transfer Talk is from midday until 1 p.m. And the Transfer Show, as ever, is at 7 p.m. with Dharmashev and Kaveh Solakov. Right, next on Sky Sports News, an injury concern for Tammy Abraham. Paul Robinson joins Rob Watton on Transfer Centre to discuss all of last night's action.